Hi, I'm Avinash Shetty with Riverbed Technical Marketing. Today we're going to look at how to deploy Outlook Anywhere connecting to Microsoft Exchange 2010 and Riverbed Steelhead appliances optimizing these connections.
First, let's talk about what Outlook Anywhere really is. Essentially, Outlook Anywhere tunnels remote procedure calls, or more specifically MAPI sessions, inside an HTTP session. Both MAPI and HTTP sessions could be encrypted or unencrypted, and all permutations of this are supported. In our demo, we will use encrypted MAPI tunneled inside a secure HTTP session. Outlook Anywhere was first introduced in Exchange 2007 and was originally called RPC over HTTP. Microsoft introduced this feature as users would no longer require VPN connectivity to access emails, since the entire session is encrypted using SSL certificates. Another key advantage from a deployment standpoint is that it uses the same URL and namespace as the Outlook web application and Exchange ActiveSync.
In today's demo, we will cover the requirements needed for the setup, an overview of our network topology, configuration of servers, as well as the corresponding setup that's required on the Steelhead appliances, performance results with and without Steelhead appliances, and finally, we'll have a section covering common deployment issues. Looking over our requirements, a Windows 2008 R2 server, which will serve as our Active Directory as well as our primary domain controller. A second host will serve as our Exchange 2010 server. A Windows 7 host running the Outlook client. And for Exchange Anywhere optimization, we will need Riverbed Steelheads running Rios version 6.5 or higher. So let's visualize these requirements. On the data center side, we will have our first 2008 R2 server, which will be running Active Directory and the domain controller. Also in this network is our Exchange 2010 server, which is registered on the domain. At the branch, we have our Outlook client. This machine is also registered on the domain. Finally, we complete the network with Riverbed appliances on either end. In our demo, the Active Directory server is called Demo 2010A. The Exchange server is called Demo 2010B, and our domain name is contoso.com. Keep these host names in mind as we run through the demo. We'll be using them throughout the demo as we run through the various configurations. Before we dive into the configuration, let's talk about the scope of this video. We will cover the setup of the delegation user and then setting up the delegation rules on the Active Directory server, configuration on the Exchange server for Outlook Anywhere, Outlook client configurations, as well as the relevant Riverbed configurations required to get the setup working. However, we will not cover the installation of the operating systems, Active Directory, the domain controller, or Exchange server. We also will not be covering how to get the hosts registered on the domain.
Let's move ahead to the deployment. The first thing we'll do is to set up a delegate user on the Active Directory server. Delegation of control is the ability to assign responsibility of managing Active Directory objects to another user, group, or organization. By delegating control, we eliminate the need for multiple administrative accounts that have broad authority. In our case, we need the Steelhead to have the authority to make changes on the Exchange server without providing it administrator privileges. Let's go ahead and add a new user. We will add a user called Delegate on the Contoso domain. Assign a password, and you're done. Now we need to allow the newly created user to read or modify the service principal name or SPN directory property for the Exchange database account on the Active Directory. At the command prompt, enter the setSPN command specifying the delegation service for Exchange followed by the user. In our case, the user is also called delegate.
Next, we need to allow our delegate user to access Exchange services on our server. To do this, we go back to our Active Directory users and select our delegate user. Right-click on the user, select Properties, and then select the Delegation tab. Click on Trust this user for delegation for specific services only, and then click Add. Click Users and Computers, and enter the name of our Exchange server. Now, select Exchange MDB as the service we want to allow for delegation. Apply all changes, and we're ready to delegate on the server. Let's shift our focus to the Exchange server. We need to make sure we have the RPC over HTTP feature installed. Open Server Manager, Features, and see if you already have it installed. If not, click on the Add Features and select RPC over HTTP and complete the installation. Once you've done this, you will need to restart the server. Now that our server is back up, let's configure Outlook Anywhere support. Open up Exchange Management Console and select Server Configuration followed by Client Access. Right-click on the server name on the right-hand side panel and select Enable Outlook Anywhere. In the dialog box, enter the fully qualified domain name of the Exchange server. Select NTLM Authentication and click Enable. You should now see a message saying Outlook Anywhere was successfully enabled. Next, we configure our Outlook client. If this is a fresh install, enter the username and password of the user who is accessing his or her email. In our example, we have user Aaron Painter, who is already set up on the Active Directory server and also configured as on the Outlook client. In Account Settings, select User and click Change. In the server settings, you can see that the server is our Exchange server. Click on More Settings, select the Security tab, and check the box to encrypt traffic between Exchange and Outlook. Click on the Connections tab and select the box to connect to Exchange using HTTP. Click on the button for proxy settings. Enter the URL for the Exchange server, choose SSL only option, and verify that the authentication method is NTLM. Apply all settings. Your Exchange server configuration is now complete. At this point, all our Exchange configuration is complete and Outlook Anywhere should work without the steelheads.